My name is Sriram. I'm an Azure Solutions Architect. Okay, I work in the. Look at this to happen, sir. Can we get started? Okay, great. So, quickly about me. My name is Sriram. I'm an Azure Solutions Architect. Okay, I work in the Cloud Transformation Engineering Division of Azure. Okay. And, at the moment, I'm involved in a project which deals with the cloud transformation journey of a customer in the banking and finance sector. Okay. Today's session is going to be about an app modernization journey, even though the journey is most of a hypothetical thing. But these cases that I'm going to discuss with you people today are seen in majority of the enterprises. Okay, and what makes it really different from all the cloud transformation journeys that are discussed in the public blogs and other forums, be it on LinkedIn, be it on any social media. We're going to talk about an app modernization journey in which we're going to compare the maturity of the application teams and the cloud platform teams. Okay, we're going to see how they run in parallel tracks but still make the transformation happen. Okay. So that's the journey of the session. Okay. To begin with, we initially will be doing a little bit of stage setting. At any point, if you have any questions, please do stop me, because at a particular point, the concepts should be really complicated because it's a concept heavy session. You can probably call it a level 300 to 400 if you will. Okay. The stage setting would involve talking about the 6 to 7 hours in a cloud transformation journey. Okay. If I have come across the articles in VMware or probably in Amazon's blogs, you would have seen the 6 to 7 hours. How many of you have seen that? No one? The methodology that you probably need to evaluate before even deciding how you're going to do the cloud transformation. That's okay. We'll be talking about the 6 to 7 hours, and we'll also be talking about what an app modernization approach is. Okay. Yeah. Before that, let us get some inventory of the skills of the people here and the kind of projects that the people have been working on. So, how many of you are working on microservices? Okay. That's a good number, considering the total crowd. Okay. How many of you are working in teams that look like cloud platform enablement? So you guys pretty much deal with cloud infrastructure, is it? Infrastructure and services, you make things happen. Okay. And how many of you are actually application developers? Be it microservices, be it legacy application, whatnot. Okay. I see some people involved in both, so you people should be the best breed of today's culture. Okay. Like I said, we're going to talk about a scenario, a hypothetical case, but this is quite commonly found in majority of the enterprises. Okay. When I say enterprise, I'm talking about any organization that's got plenty of application teams inside, and they finally decide to do an app modernization. Okay. This might be a transition from the on-premises to the cloud, or this might be an attempt to modernize all their applications. So some of the organizations might be cloud first. Okay, so in this case, they might not be having an on-prem footprint, but some of the organizations might be having plenty of applications that would be running in their on-premise infrastructure, but they would want to modernize their applications while attempting to move to the cloud. It just need not be the case that the infrastructure needs to be refreshed. Okay, they want to modernize their applications as well, while still utilizing all the benefits that cloud has. We're not going to talk about it though, but this is the most common scenario. In this kind of a scenario, if it is a very big organization and enterprise that we're talking about, okay, there would be a separate cloud platform team and there would be multiple application teams. Okay, if the application teams need to embark on the journey of modernization, be it microservices or a combination of microservices and legacy applications, do you think the application teams can get their application to the cloud probably in the second month or so? Anyone? Okay, so can someone tell me what amount of time it is going to take for the application teams to actually deploy their applications to the cloud, probably in the pre-prod environment? There is no right or wrong answer. I'm just asking your opinion. For any enterprise, how long would it take? Months, years? 12 to 18 months is one answer. Okay, that's like 1 to 1.5 years. That's the amount of time that it usually takes for an application team to try to move their application to the pre-prod environment until. Okay, for some of the enterprises which do not have a lot of regulatory compliance requirements, the time span might be lesser than that, but depends upon or varies from one organization to the other. Okay. So in this context, we'll be doing a reference to an e-commerce application that me and a friend of mine have been developing. This is a proper e-commerce application. This is not a proof of concept, but a fully functioning, highly complicated and convoluted e-commerce application. So I'm going to show you the way that it has been set up. It is not a fully functioning one though, but I'll show you what we have been doing so far. Okay, we'll briefly talk about the cloud native app deployment options. After arriving at a point wherein we know that the cloud platform teams and the application teams run in parallel, but they agree to onboard the applications to the cloud at a particular point. Okay, what if the application teams are not ready to wait for 1.5 years? What if they want to decide their programming model, and what if they want their cloud platform team to tell them that something is going to be the way that they want after 1 year or 1.5 years? But on the contrary, what would happen if the platform team comes with a decision saying that the entire enterprise is going to host their applications on a different hosting solution? Okay. So what is the modernization approach that we're going to talk about in this specific case? I'm not talking about all the modernization approaches, but one specific case. Okay, and then the target state. So this is the thing that you would have seen in the title. Okay, I've very specifically put this the wordings of the title saying that containers in the last mile, just because that in general, when we talk about app modernization, even be it in Microsoft's cloud adoption framework, how many of you are familiar with Microsoft cloud adoption framework? Great, 1%. But any cloud adoption strategy per se? Okay, how many of you people think that app modernization is directly equated to containers? Anyone? Okay, you don't agree to any of it, is it? Not to this, not to that. Okay, just to keep it alive, can someone tell me what app modernization is? In your opinion, again, there is no right or wrong answers. In your opinion, what app modernization is? Is it only infrastructure or applications and dependencies and all that? Okay, so what if someone asks you a question of, would you think about the cloud deployment options in the first place? No, that's not a question to you, but what if someone asks you saying that, while talking about app modernization, will you think about the cloud deployment options, or would you think only about how you're going to design your application as well? Okay. That's one of the several things to consider, but that's more relevant. Anything else? Okay, got a couple of answers and both are perfectly right. So we need to think about the application design was one of the answers, and the other person said that you need to think about application, the platform, database, and all the other dependencies. So it is going to be an envelope of all the things that gel together to help you in making the application function even after moving to the cloud, right? So we pretty much set the stage. Now we can get to the topic. Is it big enough? I guess it should be. So this is the 6 to 7 hours methodology that I've probably taken it from a site called Evoke Docs, or whatever you want to call it. Okay, this similar concept is available in Amazon Docs as well, the AWS Docs. Okay, when any organization wants to embark on the cloud transformation journey, I'm not talking about app modernization, but I'm going to share the slides with you all, so it is perfectly going to be available. Okay, when any organization wants to think about moving their assets or workloads or whatever jargons we want to use, they will be presented with these many options. So it is as easy as this looks. Okay. So the part that we are going to talk about is how to traverse through the decision tree. Not that, definitely not that. We're going to talk about the part wherein we will be modernizing an application. Okay. So the last line that you see at the bottom, you will be left with a couple of options. One is to redesign the application. That's what you said, and then you got infrastructure and re-architecting. So re-platforming and redesigning or re-architecting are one and the same in this context. So what you would do is that you would dissect your application, and then you would think about all the different components that present the application, and then you would go about re-architecting it from the scratch. With me till this point? Okay, great. So if you follow the last line, after you've decided that you're going to use that particular approach to get to your application to the cloud, it might not be the entire inventory, but it might be say 10 applications or even 20 applications or whatnot. You would be doing a refactoring, but you would also be developing new code. So if you decide to do, or if you decide to embrace microservices, then that's the point wherein you will adopt all the DDD approaches and then identify the boundaries, create the applications, and then redefine the logic and what other things you need to do. Okay. Okay. We already talked about this. What is app modernization and innovation? Just a few definitions from the common sites. Okay, the process of modernizing the features, internal architecture, and/or platform infrastructure. So you were right. Your answer was on point. This is just to attest to the point, saying that why do organizations or enterprises embark on the journey? Why do they really do it? Am I going to do it because everybody is doing it, or am I going to do it because I'm going to see some value realization probably in the second month or third month? That is definitely not. So behind every cloud transformation journey, there needs to be some amount of work done to understand the economical benefit that you get out of it, right? So this is quite common. You might all be knowing all this, saying that the most common scenario that you would see or you would be encountered with is modernizing your monolithic application that's already present in your on-premise. It's not going to be just one application. There can be plenty of applications that talk to each other or in isolated places. Okay. Okay. So this is one interesting point that probably you might have to think going forward. So how many of you work in enterprises or organizations wherein you have a separate cloud platform team? I already asked this question of how many people work in those places. Okay. Okay. Great. So can anyone probably tell me if you have a a race between the cloud platform team and the application team in making the features available? The platform team is slow, the application team is rather fast. And does it slow their progress? Do you have these kind of conversations at the management level? Anyone? Okay, great. So in this particular scenario, I'm saying this particular scenario that we're going to discuss in today's session, I'm going to talk to you about a use case, hypothetical case, wherein the evolution of the application, the way in which you've decided to modernize your application, being it microservices or being it a service-oriented architecture, might not be completely dependent upon your platform evolution. The application can evolve and the platform can evolve in parallel, and there should be a proper place in which these can be merged. Yep. And the discussions that predominantly happen between the leaders of the application teams and the cloud platform teams. Right, so those involve around what are the services that are going to be made available to the application teams? Do we get to make our own choices? So you would have heard about the polyglot and the plethora of services that are made available to the application teams depending upon what they want to use. Anybody follows Netflix's technical blog? No one? Netflix's technical blog, it is a must thing to do. There will be plenty of information posted there. So in Netflix, in their culture, it is a very, very open culture and a welcoming one, wherein every application team is given the freedom to use any kind of technology stack they want. Okay, Netflix also has a separate cloud platform team, but the choice of the application stack, right? Whatever kind of front end they want to use, the back end they want to use, the programming language they want to use. So they are given that freedom to choose whatever they want. Okay. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that the application teams can focus on developing the services. So when you think about microservices, then you probably would start thinking about DDD, domain-driven design, how to identify the boundaries, and which team would take ownership of which specific microservice or the service boundaries and all that. Okay. While doing that, you really need not think about what the cloud platform team needs to approve or needs to agree with, because you're simply talking about the modernization of your application. Okay. Okay. Another important point is that even if you want to start developing your applications or start developing your microservices and you want to do a dry run in the cloud, then the integration services, the choice of integration services really need not be based upon the deployment model that you're going to put your application in. So today I'm developing microservices. So how many options do I have to host my microservices in Azure? Okay. Anything else? Yeah, you got plenty of options. So the application teams need not be really worried if their applications are going to run in Azure Functions or AKS or even app services. There are standalone applications. Okay, they just need to focus on whatever logic they have been building. This is a timeline or a Gantt chart, if you will. The font is really small, but I'm going to share the presentation with you either way. So this talks about the activities that the cloud platform team and the application teams do in parallel. The way in which the evolution happens within an enterprise. Okay. So the first half talks about the application teams. Okay. In the application teams, we've identified all the phases. Okay. In the phases, you pretty much have the cloud native architecture, the minimum viable product, identification of it, and then application and microservices design. This is where you will do the DDD. Okay, and development of microservices, testing, and deployment to cloud. So the the last box that you see, right? Deploy the services to the cloud or application to the cloud. That's where they are getting ready to push all their applications to the cloud. The target state architecture in which they are wanting their application to run in the cloud. Okay. The lower half of the chart is where you see the evolution of the cloud platform team. Okay. In that you pretty much see, okay, how many of you guys deal with infrastructure people as well? Okay, what kind of decisions do you make for your application teams? Can someone share your thoughts with us? Can we pass the mic? No mic? Okay, who wants to go first?
Right. So, as per the global evolution, the teams are segregated into two pieces. Application team is different, database team is different, AML, CME, all the teams are different. So, in the era of cloud, infra is becoming separated, like, that is going to be data center team that plays a major role only for on-prem based projects. If there is an integration between on-prem and if there is a migration, if there is a transformation happening, then the scope is that they both need to get collaboratively involved in that, but DC team is separate and cloud team is separate. That is how the enterprises are focusing on now, progressing on.
Okay. Okay, I got half of it because the mic wasn't really clear. But anyway, I got the picture though. Okay, any of you here have conversations with your, the cloud platform leaders about the way the organization or the enterprise should proceed forward, the decision-making process? Will you be adopting Kubernetes, or will you be adopting, the serverless or whatever capabilities are present that are available in the cloud?
Yeah. In our organization, we do have. Kubernetes Docker container part is being handled by the cloud team.
Okay. Fine then. Thank you. So I'll get back to the point where I'm going to try to explain the lower part of the chart, which is depicting the evolution of the cloud platform team. Okay. So this pretty much involves identifying the existing investments. These are all part of the infrastructure modernization, but again, the cloud platform team should be mindful of it and would be mindful of it for any enterprise. Okay. They would also be talking about the TCO, total cost of ownership. Okay, will it really come down after moving to the cloud? Okay, and evaluation of the infrastructure modernization options that they have. And then public cloud decision. So that is one important point wherein they have plenty of options, public cloud being Azure, AWS, GCP, and whatnot. Okay, and then there comes the enterprise architecture and the cloud strategy. So the decisions that I make today, are they in line with the cloud strategy that the enterprise forms? Okay. And they would go about evaluating the public cloud. That's going to be the third point. The reason for evaluating the public cloud can be many, for financial reasons, financial benefits, the cost optimization they can do. But apart from that, depending upon the requirements of the application teams, do we have all these services available in a particular public cloud, be it Azure, be it AWS? Okay. And then they would come to the point wherein they also would gather all the applications requirements. They would be getting the applications teams requirements saying that, for my application to run in the cloud, I would need X, Y, and Z. This kind of compute and this kind of storage and this kind of networking or whatnot. And the last point is wherein the cloud platform team provides the managed services. They make a particular service available for the application teams to start hosting their applications or services. Okay, so that's going to be the last part, the bottommost one that you see in the timeline chart. Okay, you would see a very thin line that has been drawn to map the place or the point in the timeline wherein the application teams and the cloud platform teams finally agree at a point, and the platform team makes something available for the application teams. All right, so this would probably go on for months together before the application teams can actually start pushing all their applications to the cloud using the DevOps practices seamlessly. Okay. So this was going to depict the problem scenario, if at all there is one, of having a separate cloud platform team making the decisions and the application team trying to modernize. So with me till this point? Okay, great. Any questions? No? Sorry?
Hi. Everything you mentioned in the quarter wise, right? So somewhere we are going in the agile mode. So there will be parallel release to the clients. So how this model will work in that way?
I'll answer your question. Give me just a little bit of time. Okay, this is the interesting part. Okay, we're going to take a reference to the microservices e-commerce application that we have been building. Okay, this is the high-level integration architecture for the microservices application. It's a very common e-commerce application. We got plenty of microservices, or say 7 or 8. We have the cart service, we have an inventory service, we have the customer service, orders, fraud validation, payment service, and so on. Right? So we took a very common scenario of having to develop an e-commerce application. Your use case might be completely different. If the enterprise is dealing with an e-commerce business, they might be wanting to do something like this. If the enterprise wants to develop a data heavy application, then their design would be looking a little different, right? And whatever kind of application that you run, you would be having an initial architecture charted out, this is the high-level integration architecture that we initially came up with even before starting to write any amount of code. Injected. Okay. I'd very quickly show you the complexity of the application. Clear to a certain extent? Okay, this shows the event-driven, event flow diagram. The architecture or the modernization that we have done is an end-to-end event-driven architecture using Saga and all the remaining microservices and cloud design patterns. Okay, this is how complicated the diagram, happened to be. There are a couple of PaaS services that we've been using. One is Cosmos DB, another is Kafka. Apart from that, that is pretty much the services that we have been developing to hold the logic, the application logic. Okay, now we arrive at a point wherein we actually talk about the specific case. In a scenario wherein these two teams evolve in parallel, right? The cloud platform and the application teams evolve in parallel. Okay. Considering you have this kind of an application, which is totally event-driven, that has got Saga, and all these services, interact with each other only using events and not using any APIs or other mechanisms. So if you were to start from the scratch doing a re-architecting of your application, then the most obvious choice for you would be Azure Functions, right? But let us take a question saying that if the cloud platform team is in agreement with that, do we know that can we use Azure Functions? If we don't know the answer, should we really stop there? Any guesses? Sorry? Okay, what else? That is right. Exactly. So what I'm saying is that whatever you're saying is correct, but the cloud platform team might or might not make the application available to you. They might be in agreement saying that you will have Kubernetes, but probably in 8 months from now. You will have Azure Functions probably 10 months from now. Just saying. We're just evaluating all these scenarios just to make sure that before the cloud platform team comes on board, should the application teams really need to base their decisions on all the available choices, or they need to think only upon the best programming fashion and then go to a point wherein they can work along with the cloud platform team? I'll tell you why. In this case, this particular architecture that I'm showing you, we did not even take the applications to the cloud. We haven't still. Okay. The key point that I'm trying to highlight here is that all the services that we've written till this point, the microservices, we're using the functions programming approach. That's the key point of or one of the several key points of the session. We're not talking about Azure Functions as a hosting platform in the cloud. We're talking about functions programming model because that's the best fit for my event-driven architecture. Agreed? So we started developing this application just keeping in mind that we need the event-driven architecture to be in place. And we'll be using all the event-driven features available in Azure Functions, right? So that said, we just had to use Cosmos. The decision can be something else as well. Again, Kafka as a messaging pattern, you can still exchange it out for event hub. That really doesn't matter. Okay, so this is what I was explaining. So functions is the programming approach, right? So if you're a part of the application team, you just need to focus on what kind of programming approach you're going to take to make the e-commerce application or the microservice application work. Okay. An integration mechanism need not be really dependent upon the hosting solution that I do. Okay, so maybe 6 months from now, the functions or the services that I'm developing, do you think that the Azure Functions is the only destination for these services? And should I be worried about it? Okay, one gentleman says no. Any other answers? Okay. We'll keep moving due to the lack of time. Like I said, we have been developing and implementing the services in the local box. Our traffic reaches out to the Cosmos DB and Kafka that is running in the cloud, but not the functions or the services that are running in the serverless services. Okay. And now comes the part wherein I have a working version of the services, say 1 or 2 services. I got an inventory service, I got a customer service. Okay, I just want to see if I can do a dry run. I can take the application to the cloud. So this slide is going to contain information that is common to the cloud platform team and to the application teams, right? Who makes a decision varies from one organization to other. But this is a question that I posted to you earlier. Okay. The functions that we have developed can be taken to the cloud and hosted at the serverless functions as a service. Azure Functions is your choice. Or all these services can be containerized. What if I told you that all the functions that I showed you in the event flow diagram, all the microservices can be containerized? And then you answered me that Azure has given you plenty of services to host your containers. Would you agree or would you disagree? I've modernized my application. I know that I'm going to go with the event-driven approach because this is totally microservices, and I have done all the brainstorming. It is completely event-driven, Saga, all the microservices patterns, and I'm going to use the event-driven power of Azure Functions, or I'll say functions model, not Azure Functions. But the cloud platform team now comes and tells you that we give you a couple of options. You can either run your applications or services in the Azure Functions in the serverless fast model, or you can containerize them and run it in AKS or in any other containerized application hosting services. Okay, your answer is almost there, but have you already tried it? Containerizing your functions. Okay. This whole session revolves around the concept wherein Microsoft provides you a way wherein you can use the functions model but still containerize them. Okay, I'm going to rush through these slides because I've got a couple of architectures to show, maybe one more architecture to show, and some information from my running AKS cluster. We won't be having a lot of time for the demonstration, but the way that this particular thing works is that we will be able to run our Azure functions on Kubernetes. KEDA is an additional component, but that's for auto scaling. But the Microsoft offering here talks about a particular point wherein it is a function, an event-driven function. So if I were to show you all the code, it would be based upon the Cosmos trigger, Kafka trigger, and then HTTP trigger and whatnot, right? Guys with me? Okay. So if I were to show you the code, probably I'll show you after the session. Got a question? Okay. It is totally functions, right? But Microsoft provides you a way using their functions core tools to containerize the functions app. So what happens is that every container that gets spun, it would be having a couple of components. One is the scaling controller, another is the functions runtime. Okay, so Microsoft prepares a Docker image for you from which all the remaining steps are built. Okay, the Docker image is functions friendly, right? So the functions runtime that is present within the Docker container takes care of doing all the activities that a regular function would do. when listening to events and all other activities that the function needs to do. Okay, and the scaling controller is the part which integrates with the KEDA functionality of Kubernetes, wherein it listens to all the custom events and then scales the total number of pods present. Right? So this is the anatomy of Azure functions. I'm not going to go through all the points. I'll share the deck with you. You can go ahead and do that. How KEDA works, you people would be knowing this, right? How many of you do not know KEDA or haven't explored KEDA? Okay. Yeah, KEDA stands for Kubernetes Event-Driven Autoscaling, right? In general, for vanilla Kubernetes, if you were to start exploring with KEDA, then you would be listening to the metrics that are present within a container, be it CPU, be it memory, or whatnot. This is the old-fashioned way, or the basic way. That's why I said it's a vanilla Kubernetes, right? The scaling part, right? This particular architecture that runs as a part of the control plane in Kubernetes would be listening to the performance and the metrics of the container, and then would start auto-scaling. But in this case, we're talking about a capability wherein the containers would start auto-scaling depending upon the total number of events that you receive. Just remember that I'm talking about an e-commerce application that is totally event-driven. I want my functions to still run in AKS, but also auto-scale when there is heavy traffic. So should there be a mechanism within AKS to handle that? What if I make my application live tomorrow and there are about something like Thanksgiving Day, I receive like 1 million events. If there is no mechanism to automatically scale the containers based upon the custom events, will my application be live even for half an hour? So that is the second part of this solution, wherein they have provided an integration with the KEDA, but now the KEDA has been equipped to listen to custom sources. So it will be able to listen to total number of events from EventHub or Kafka or even any other messaging system. And there is a very custom event source or integration that has been defined for Cosmos DB. Right? So that has been a community effort. So even that is made available. Any change that happens in Cosmos, the change feed processing, change data capture, all that, so you can have your containers reacting to that. Okay, I've put a quick snippet of command. 2 minutes, I need 5 minutes. Okay, this is the command. I'm asked to wind up soon. We're running late. This is the case of the Kubernetes tooling and function core tool that is available as a part of this whole solution. You simply say func Kubernetes deploy, and then whatever service that I was talking about, the whole complicated event-driven diagram that I showed you, right? If you take a particular service from there, and then you use that service to containerize it, then automatically what this command does it containerizes the application or the service and then deploys it to whatever Kubernetes that you want it to. So this is how it would work. If I were to subject my e-commerce sites, right, all the services, it would containerize everything. It would go to the container registry, and then this big box that you see here, this is what the function core tools does for you. Okay, it creates secret service account, role binding, function pods. These are the two important things that you need to pay attention to: function pods and horizontal pod autoscaler. So if you had been with me in this ride or in the cloud transformation journey, you would see that I now have my functions service running inside Kubernetes pods. So as a part of the conclusion, let me say that the cloud platform team at a very later stage decides that you're going to use Kubernetes and you're not going to use serverless, whatever reason it is. Because the entire enterprise is using Kubernetes. So let's all use Kubernetes. All the application teams use Kubernetes. But in the timeline chart, earlier the decision was to use Azure functions programming approach. In this case, it's still possible. Your application or your service would still be running in the Kubernetes according to your cloud platform's decision and would be having all the capabilities present within it. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I've got some references added, and one quick mention about the DevOps part. I'll answer the gentleman's question offline, but what it pretty much does, I'll show you that alone, and we'll be done with that. It should take a minute. That's it. Or do you see that here? Okay, this is a moderately simplified DevOps architecture. Okay. So the application that you develop would be going through a series of steps before it reaches the container registry. And from the container registry, our pipelines would be taking it to the AKS cluster, right? The Kubernetes, functions core tooling that I just showed you, the command for which I showed you, would cover all these steps for you, this line. It would take a code, it would containerize it, it would push it to the container registry, and then it would also deploy your functions service as a pod inside your target Kubernetes. That is what it does for you. This might not be the thing to use for your production deployments because you might be having plenty of DevSecOps practices, but this is the part if you want to equate what is happening to your DevOps cycle. Okay? Okay guys, thank you so much.